Hello and welcome back to another video. Today here again on Gran Turismo 7 to take a look at the third and final vehicle from the latest update 1.15. So I have previously looked at the Toyota GR010 Hybrid and the Suzuki Vision GT. If you want to see videos on either of those, they went up very recently here on the channel. But today we're going to be looking at this Roadster Shop Rampage Camaro. So, the Roadster Shop Rampage is based on a 1970 Camaro, but highly modified, obviously, actually for the SEMA modified car show over in America, and it actually won the 2014 Gran Turismo award, which is how they decide which of these sort of mad modified cars from that show get added to the game. I did actually think that it was in Sport for some reason, but I was mistaken, it wasn't in that game at all. This is in fact the first game it's been in. This was the first time I've driven it anyway, obviously because it wasn't in that game, but yeah, I did think it was and I just hadn't driven it, but it wasn't in there at all. It is brand new for Gran Turismo 7. It has a 7-litre LS7 engine, producing 748 horsepower, and weighs 1,406 kilos, so it's still not the lightest thing in the world, despite being heavily modified. That's probably that massive engine mostly weighing it down, but that puts it at nearly 669 performance points from standard here in Gran Turismo. It was quite interesting researching this thing, because the Roadster Shop website, the people who built this, have a brilliant series of photos documenting the whole build, and despite the way this thing looks, it didn't drive all that brilliantly. You'd kind of think with all of those aero-y bits and downforcey bits, it might be quite good, but as you can see there, it's not all that controllable. I think having that much power does just make things pretty uncontrollable, and to be honest, I think most of the sort of aero-y bits are visual, really. Not entirely functional, they're more for looks than for doing anything. But it is a really, really cool looking thing, but like I say, not the easiest thing to drive, which perhaps isn't all that much of a surprise with that much power. You can actually remove the wing rather interestingly, although as with the previous two cars from this update, there's not really any other customization you can do here in GT Auto. So, rather surprisingly, there were quite a lot of options in the upgrade shop, bringing the performance points up to 782.02, with some racing soft tyres, fully customizable suspension, which I haven't messed with. There's a... yeah, I didn't bother with the diff. We've got a fully customizable ECU, so we could bring the power down slightly if we wanted to drop the PI. There's a few other things, customizable transmission you could put in. But it was quite interesting that it wasn't on race tyres from standard, it was on sports tyres. So there's several powerful superchargers and things you can put in. The high-end one in the racing section of the upgrade shop is what we've ended up with. Racing all of these. Brakes and suspension I thought were kind of more important, given it didn't handle brilliantly from standard. But this is what we've got it set up like now. I haven't messed with any tuning, like I said. This is just pretty much what it looks like, maxed out with all of the bits from the upgrade shop. So I was possibly a bit foolish adding all of that power as well as some of the handling bits. I think maybe if you just improved the tyres, the suspension and brakes, it would have made this car a lot more drivable, because it's pretty much just as bad as before. I did attempt a 10-lap race around the Daytona road course in it, because that was the only thing it was seemed to be eligible for in the Americas, which is obviously where I wanted to race it. But it ended very quickly in a big accident. So I came here to Laguna Seca instead, where there was a bit more room to have crashes without bumping into anybody else. So yeah, I have made it just about as undrivable as it was before. I think I should now return to the upgrades, take everything off that doesn't improve handling, and see if this car is at all drivable. Because at the moment, despite what it looks like here, I was being very, very careful on the throttle. It is still almost impossible to drive, and you can't get anywhere near its full potential out of it because you're being so careful. So after taking all of the parts that add power off, apart from the ECU, because that's quite useful, because it's adjustable, it's now down to 858 horsepower when it was at over 1,000 before, and is down to 763 performance points, so hopefully that'll just make it slightly more drivable. So rather unsurprisingly, it was much improved after that. Still wasn't perfect. It lower speeds in first and second. If you got on the power a little bit too much, it would still kick the back out and try and spin. But once you're up to speed, lapping round Trial Mountain here, it was pretty good. In the end, wasn't too bad at all. Was a lot more enjoyable to drive because you weren't constantly worried about having a big crash. Although I still don't think it would be worth attempting to enter any races really in this. So that's kind of what I can conclude with this car. If you get hold of it, put handling parts on to try and improve it slightly, make it slightly more enjoyable to drive, but don't add any power. And once you've added those handling bits, you can enjoy it to drive, but I wouldn't recommend trying to race it. So yeah, it's a very cool thing, but not especially good to drive. It's not bad if you add handling bits, but like I say, it's still not going to be winning any races that easily. Yes, somebody who knows what they're doing with the tuning settings could potentially tune some of that twitchiness at low speeds and oversteer out of it, and maybe make it slightly better. Maybe if you tuned it down to 750 performance points, you might be able to enter stuff around there in it, but I just don't think it's going to be super competitive whatever you do with it, because it does have quite an oversteer tendency, probably just because it's got a lot of power in it. I don't know if you could limit the standard power to make it more usable in lower categories, potentially, but as it is in-game, it's just all a bit too much. So it is a very fun thing to drive if you improve the handling slightly, like I said, but it's just not all that fast. But anyway, that is going to do it for a first look at the third of the new vehicles in this brand new update. If you want to see videos of the other two, they went up recently if you want to go and check those out. But for now, for a first look at the Camaro, that is going to be all. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.